Hi, my name is Natekokernot, and welcome to my channel, where I have been talking about perception of late. Today is actually my last attempt at convincing you that our perceptions are not accurate representations of what is actually occurring around us. I've pointed you towards the recent scientific findings in the first few videos in this series, and in my last video, I introduced you to the Genesis story in A Course in Miracles, for how the ego, along with fear, guilt, and yes, even perception, came into being according to that spiritual tradition. If you want to hear all of it, please visit the channel itself and go to playlists and then select the perception playlist, and you'll find all of my videos on the topic there. I've included some additional videos of scientists speaking for themselves under the more sections of all those videos. Today I'm diving into the hard problem of consciousness. Whether we're aware of it or not, the question of how consciousness emerges from physical substrates, such as neurons in our brains, has been a subject of scientific as well as philosophical research for centuries, if not millennia. It's really the most basic question of all. I, like many of the scientists I've referred to in these videos, believe that consciousness does not emerge from physical substrates at all. The story we're running with is that the physical universe that we experience emerged from consciousness. In other words, we believe that consciousness is fundamental. There's many philosophical debates that come up out of this one. One such debate is about cause and effect and about co-relationships. Let's tackle that one first. One argument that a physicalist might give me is that an MRI machine lighting up as an effect of a certain region of my brain being activated, as an effect of my thinking a certain thought, is proof that consciousness somehow emerges from brain activity. To this, I would say that a co-relationship doesn't necessarily imply a particular cause and effect relationship. Here's an example of what I mean. For many centuries, humankind had an assumption that the sun was traveling around the earth, and that it makes its entire revolution around the earth in the space of time that we call a day. We could see, with the technology available to us at the time, that the sun was lighting up the eastern horizon every morning, and that it was tracking through the sky from the direction of east to west through the day before setting over the western horizon each evening. But the cause and effect that explained why this appeared to be happening, that the earth was actually spinning around an axis, giving the appearance to the humans who dwelt on it that the sun was moving around the earth, it did not occur to us until we had some newer technologies at our disposal. Things like MRI machines could just as well be the last domino to fall, or the effect, rather than the causative first domino. The hard problem of consciousness itself is the search for a scientifically reasonable explanation on the level of neurons in the brain for just one single conscious experience. A conscious experience could be anything from the sensation of a breeze hitting one's face, to the smell of sage, to the taste of chocolate, to the sound of a Beethoven sonata. These are called qualia in the field of consciousness studies. The scientists have been trying to solve this hard problem of consciousness for centuries now. I imagine a lot of money and resources have been exhausted in this search. And guess what? Not a single conscious experience, not a single qualia has been explained definitively. Donald Hoffman, my favorite cognitive scientist, chalks this up to the fact that these scientists, who he describes as his friends and colleagues and as extremely intelligent people, are still hanging on to an assumption that is sending them in the wrong direction in search for the answers. Like searching for their keys in the house when really they're in the car. If it can be proven that consciousness really does get sparked somehow by the activation or stimulation of neurons, then the whole basis for my channel will have been proven wrong. If the physical universe does emerge from consciousness, then it is still reasonable to imagine that we all might share one consciousness. If it gets sparked somehow from neurons in our individual brains, then that argument can be laid to rest. One reason that Donald Hoffman and I are very confident this will never happen is that it hasn't happened yet. Another reason is Leibniz's mill experiment. This is a thought experiment proposed by a philosopher named Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who lived in the second half of the 17th century and a little ways into the 18th century. He asked us to imagine ourselves crawling into a large hypothetical mill that boots up consciousness. He says that we can inspect the moving parts all we want and still not get at the cause of consciousness, partially because we can only confirm consciousness by way of consciousness. If this mill is conscious, we can't step inside it enough to experience its consciousness. We will at best just reveal new surfaces hidden underneath other surfaces, but we still won't experience the consciousness itself to confirm it is there. He also mentions that consciousness is self-generative, in that if the neurons in our brains are causing it, they don't need any outside energy force to get themselves moving and doing what they need to do to boot up consciousness. Well, that's another argument for another day, but it's a good point nevertheless. I've attached 2 videos in the More section today. The first is a couple of modern-day philosophers discussing Leibniz's thought experiment and its ramifications on the debate over consciousness, and the second one is of David Chalmers, describing the hard problem of consciousness itself. It was he that coined the term in a talk he gave in 1994. What is consciousness? It could be described, in the rawest sense, as a sense of being, or as an awareness of existing. It is a subjective experience. Just like with the mill, we cannot confirm with an absolute certainty that the person we are talking to is consciousness, just like we can't prove that a rock isn't conscious. We can't get beyond the surface of either of these 2 entities to know for certain. The same goes for AI. Many people will, and I guarantee this because it's already happening, become convinced that AI is conscious. Perhaps because it is successful at mimicking human behavior, and we all assume that human behavior is conscious behavior. But they will never be able to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. If we can't prove that our friend is conscious, we can't prove that a machine has become conscious either. But apparently, the fruitlessness of the search hasn't convinced many consciousness researchers to stop searching for it in physical substrates. And many have already proposed unprovable theories of how it is by way of this or that activity in the brain. They could be right, but they'll never be certain. Then there's the story that's been told for millennia by mystics and spiritual teachers, that the physical world emerges from a shared consciousness which is itself fundamental. What they are saying is that perception is an aspect of conscious awareness. Not every living being has the same tools for perceiving as we do. They don't all have eyes, for instance. Perception itself isn't consciousness, then, if other species have that sense of existence. If our perception of the world emerged from a fundamental shared consciousness and truth, and this also can't be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, then we are all one mind. If the mystics have been right all along, it would explain some other things that can't be explained by the physicalist argument. For one, with the assistance of what we do know already about quantum mechanics, and what I've covered in past videos, it would explain why we experience confirmation bias, why we experience the echo chamber, why we experience projection, why we experience the snowball effect, and why we are all experiencing such polarization in the world today. I'm saying that if you grant me the premise that all those things are experiences, I can explain why we experience them from the premise of the one mind that is confused about its identity, believing itself to be a separate mind. I can also explain the experiences of love and fear from this premise in a very logical and reasonable way. But I keep making the same point over and over. None of this can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. We have to take it on faith, in other words. I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to start a series with my next video called Love versus Fear, where I will argue for the logic that all love comes from the awareness of our one-mind identity, while all fear is derived from holding on to the belief in our separateness. Because if it's up to all of us to decide for ourselves what to believe in regards to this topic, I can make a pretty good argument that you will feel immense amounts of love and very little fear if you choose to believe fully in the one-mind perspective. Thanks to all of you for listening, and a special shout out to all of you who have liked a video or subscribed to the channel. If you haven't yet, I get it. I forget to give the thumbs up to many of the videos I like on YouTube. But if you think of it, it does help the algorithm to get this material out to more viewers. And a message of love is very much needed in these times. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.